Hi friends, we are Timo and Sandra, aka Monasi, and we spent the last 2 years traveling through Europe full-time in our self-converted van Parker.
We lived the most amazing adventures and had the best time living on the road. Made awesome friends and saw the most beautiful places. But now we're ready for something new.
So we decided to go back home, pack our bags and get ready for a new adventure.
With way too many bags, we flew 16,000 kilometers away from home and made it all the way to Melbourne, Australia.
Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. We are Monasi and we recently moved from Berlin to Melbourne, Australia.
So for today's video, we thought we would share with you some things that you should know before you come to Australia. If you're thinking to either come here for a holiday or move here, there are some things that you should know that might help you understanding the culture and blending in with the rest of the Aussies. So without further ado, let's get into the video.
Alright, we start off very easy. You probably know that traffic is on the other side, which means on the right side?
On the left side.
On the left side.
On the other side.
So it's not where you usually drive if you're European or American, so that's something to know. Also in Australia it is very common to pay everything on card. We are roughly here now for 2 months and actually I can't remember holding cash in my hand so far. The notes are very colorful and super fun, but actually you almost never have them because you pay everything on card here, so it's definitely a cashless society.
One thing you need to know is that the Aussies are very friendly and chatty people. Most of the times you would end up having a small talk and a small conversation with people you meet at the supermarket and the line in the coffee shop, and I would say be prepared for this. They like to ask you how you are, how your day's going, and they expect an answer, so don't be too European like we were when we first got here or the first time and they ask you, hey, how's it going, how you going, and then you say, yeah, good, and don't ask back. That's a bit rude. So be ready to chat, be ready to make friends, because Aussies are pretty friendly people. And talking about conversation, you should be aware that the Aussies use a lot of slang. And with that I mean, they have a lot of short forms and funny ways to say things, and you should be ready because if you've never had them before, you probably are like, what are they talking about? So here are some of our favorites and most common Aussie words.
Avo
For
avocado.
Arvo for afternoon.
Servo
For petrol station.
or service station.
Smoko,
Having a smoke.
or just taking a break.
Actually, true. Also just taking a break.
Then you have your basic, your sunnies, your undies. This is just sunglasses and your underwear.
Very important things. Always have them handy on you.
Or for example, if you're going to the beach, they don't say flip-flops for your, these ones that you use for the beach. They're called thongs in here. But most of the times, they just make a word that ends in I or O. Even for people like, you would be probably Tomo, Sandy, cigarette, ciggy, breakfast, brekkie, and these kind of things. So be aware that the Aussies use a lot of funny words and maybe just make a list before you arrive. Actually, I was using one from the beginning of the video, which is Aussie, which refers to Australian people.
Australia is definitely an early morning society. They like to get up early and get their shit done early, so they have the afternoon to hang around, be at the beach, whatever. The reason Australians might be morning people is because they enjoy their coffee so much. There are so many good coffee shops here. Probably the best place to be if you enjoy coffee is Australia, especially Melbourne. So be ready to get up early and start the day with delicious coffee here.
I remember almost 6 years ago when I was living here and working at a coffee shop, we would open the coffee shop at 6:30 in the morning, which is pretty early, but there were people already ready for their cup of coffee, their brekkie, and yeah, they like it early in the morning. Which also means that businesses close pretty early during the day, so most coffee places are closed around 3 or 4 p.m, which is also pretty early compared to European ones. And talking about cafes and working at cafes, I was told recently that Australia has one of the highest minimum wages in the world. I think it was around $21 to $22 per hour, which is pretty good, and there's also a lot of job opportunities in all industries, especially in hospitality and retail and things like this. So if you're new to the country or you're planning to come here and work, it's a great place to do so.
You will see that when you're in a restaurant, in a cafe or just in a clothing store, whatever, they're never understaffed. Especially in hospitality, there are always enough people to get the food out quickly and serve you quickly, so you can really see that they take care of the service side.
Yeah, I actually wanted to say this is not even on the list, but I'm gonna put it right here. Australia has... Bonus 1 is 1. Australia has one of the best customer service I have experienced. How about you?
Yeah, it's true. They're just lovely people.
Yeah.
So
be ready for nice.
ready. Also be aware that Australia is much bigger than it looks on the map. I remember we came here 2018 for a little trip and we wanted to drive from Melbourne to Sydney, and it's such a distance on the map, but it's actually a solid 9-hour drive. So just be aware that this country is huge, and if you're planning to travel by car, you need a lot of time to get from A to B. Just to give you an idea, Australia is almost as big as the US, but on the contrary, US has 330 million people and Australia just 25 million. So there's definitely enough space to have some privacy here, so enjoy that while you're here.
Something pretty interesting about Australia is that the weather is flipped compared to what we used to in Europe. So normally, the northern you go, the colder it gets, and the southern you go, the warmer and nicer weather you get. However, in Australia, it is the opposite. The northern you go, the more tropical, humid, hot weather you get. In the southern, you have a bit more changing of seasons and it can get a bit colder. Let's be completely honest, it won't get very cold, but still, you have colder climate than in the north.
Which is pretty fascinating, because if you look at the map of Australia, in the south there's literally nothing, just the ocean till you hit the Antarctica. That's probably the reason why it gets a bit colder towards the south.
I've heard that actually in Tasmania and in New Zealand they get snow, so I guess it's gonna be pretty cold there. But at least in Melbourne we're gonna get a bit of both, which is nice.
We can't talk about Australia without mentioning the Aboriginal people of Australia, which are actually the oldest culture in the world. A lot of people think that Australia used to be the ship-off for prisoners from England, but actually there were original people here first, and unfortunately they got colonized and they had actually a quite dark chapter to go through, and we just want to mention it. So when you're here, we highly encourage you to learn about the history and support the Aboriginal community here.
I think one of the first things that comes to mind when you hear Australia is the dangerous animals. And yes, there are a lot of things that can kill you here, but most of the times, especially if you live in the main cities, you don't encounter them so often. Although by saying this, I was on my bike yesterday and out of my bike, on my basket, I had crawling towards me a huge spider. What was it called again?
Huntsman spider.
We put a picture in here. I freaked out and it was the biggest thing I've ever seen. But nonetheless, they're not dangerous or poisonous. So she jumped out and we just moved on with our days. But things like this can actually happen quite often. We hear a lot of stories of people finding animals in their house, and most of the times actually the worst ones are the smallest ones, especially with spiders. Don't be discouraged by this. Australia has some beautiful wildlife and we can't wait to explore more and see more of those beautiful animals in the outdoors. Sadly, Melbourne doesn't have so many kangaroos or koalas, but we're coming for you.
Talking about wildlife, there's one thing that you should definitely know, especially in the mornings. The birds are going crazy. I was here the first time in 2018 and I woke up with this concert of birds screaming. It is crazy. So be prepared, bring your earplugs, because they can get quite loud, especially if you are in the suburbs and not in the city center.
Leave the stereotypes behind. I'm here to break it to you. Not everybody in Australia looks like Chris Hemsworth. They're not all blonde surfers going barefoot to the beach to catch some waves. That's just not how it is. Actually, one of the greatest things about Australia is how multicultural it is and how many different people you meet. Especially because they have a very diverse immigration history. So there's actually several communities that moved here around the 40s and the 50s of Greeks, Italian, Vietnamese, and those were actually the first generation. Now the second generation was born and raised in Australia, and it's just great to see so many different cultures in here. So yes, be prepared. Australia is full of a lot of different beautiful people.
One last thing, and I hope I don't mess this one up because it's very complicated, at least for us. Australia has different time zones. Yes, I didn't know. But the crazy thing is that the time zones are not even different by an hour, maybe 2 hours. They're different by 30 minutes and even 15 minutes. Which is absolutely crazy. If you cross a certain line, your watch would just go 15 minutes ahead or back. And we were just like, we still don't understand the very principle behind it. So be aware when you're traveling by car, if you're flying, that the time could actually change within Australia.
We put a picture here with the time zone so you can have a look, or maybe Google about it, because it's still very confusing to us.
And also some parts of Australia actually don't do daylight savings, so the time stays the same all year round, something we also didn't know.
So these are some things that we thought were pretty interesting for someone that has maybe never been to Australia and is planning to come here, and we hope they make you feel a bit more comfortable and familiar with the culture and this beautiful country.
Alright guys, if you've made it this far into the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel. We would really appreciate your support, and also we have more Australia content planned, so stay tuned.
Also, if you have any other questions or things you would like us to share with you about Australia, do leave them in the comment. We're also learning, but we're more than happy to share them with you. See you guys next week.
Bye bye.
Bye.